All right, Brian, we are live, and today we have an interesting topic. But before we do that, let's do a quick introduction. I am Sam Shihab with the law firm of Shihab Burke. We're immigration attorneys, and with me is
Brian Burke, also from Shehab Burke, happily here in Dublin, Ohio, suburban Columbus, my home. Sam, let's address the elephant in the room, or the elephant not in the room, briefly.
I
Uh,
am in the Motor City.
yes.
I'll be representing a client on an interesting naturalization case. They wanted me to come up here and represent him. I love the Motor City. I love the ethnic food. I love to deal with USCIS office over here. I've dealt with them many of times, so as I have in many other parts of the USA, and that's what it's taken me today. It's Michigan time, which is fine with me. I love Michigan.
Not too bad a drive for us. I saw you this morning, and a couple hours, and you're there. So good
Yeah, a
times.
little bit more than 2 hours, but
Yeah.
I have had this time. I have a driver, which is my daughter. She's 19 years old, and she has cousins here. And it was wonderful. She's never driven me before, and she did a great job. And I was sitting in the back seat. I didn't even sit next to her because I had my
Wow, you got the
laptop.
chauffeur treatment. Well, I
I got my
remember Sam.
laptop open. I got my phone connected, and I was just basically working away for 3.5 hours.
I remember Sam a long time ago when we first met with my first week of working with you. We went up to the immigration court, and
Cleveland, right?
I served as a chauffeur for that occasion when I knew
Yeah.
nothing.
Yes,
So
but
good.
we are an employment-based immigration law firm, but we
Yep.
are also very, and this is something that not a lot of employment-based immigration law firms can say they are good at, which is we're also good in family immigration
Yep.
naturalization cases, and we don't
We're not
shy
shy
away
about it.
from them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yes, absolutely. So this is an interesting case, but today also a topic that is not related to employment immigration, but
Well,
it obviously,
we can't resist it. How can we not talk about this? It's
yeah.
you
So
know
this,
we're here to talk about big immigration news, and this is the biggest immigration news that is, I don't know, since the 2020 visa bulletins, when those employment dates went crazy, in my estimation. You know.
yeah, well, yes, obviously. So President Biden came out a few months ago and said, you know what? There's a law in the books which would allow spouses of U.S. citizens who are entered without inspection in the U.S. to get a green card.
Yep.
We all knew that. There's a lot of other tools that the administration can take. For example, in the employment base, there's a lot of talk about the decoupling, the counting of
Yeah.
spouse families from
Executive,
the.
another, yeah, a potential use of executive power there.
But he said, that we got laws in the books. If you are a spouse of a U.S. citizen with certain requirements, you may be able to get a green card even though that you have entered the United States across the border
Yeah.
illegally. Now, how fair is that? And that's a conversation we will have after we go through the rules and what they are, so we can explain it to people. Fair or unfair, migration and immigration is part of the human DNA.
Yeah.
Birds migrate. I see all those birds migrating to and from Canada.
Yeah. They were probably following you up there. Right? Perfect timing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, when it gets cold, they go south. When it gets warm, they go north. So does the human being. The human being migrates, follows economic prosperity, follows
Family, of course.
security,
Yeah.
and so forth. But let's dive into the Biden parole in place or the legalization program. Let's go through what it is, what are the requirements. Obviously, our office has experience with parole in place before, which is a little bit different than advanced parole,
Yeah.
but it's on the same form.
Yeah.
Well, they've changed the form now. They created a special form
For this new one, yeah, yeah,
for
this
this
new
new
program.
scenario, which so they can have a kind of a way to separate it quickly.
Yeah.
So if someone is married to a U.S. citizen before a magic date, Brian,
Yep.
um, can get the green card. So let's go through how that can happen.
Well, let's start at the highest, maybe the most basic level. U.S. We're talking to our usual employment-based audience here, and they're probably in this audience because an employer has sponsored them for a green card. Fine. U.S. citizens are allowed to sponsor their relatives for a green card as well. Employment-based sponsorship done on I-140, family-based sponsorship done on I-130. If a foreign national is married to a United States citizen, they can file this form I-130 that says, "Hey, I'm a United States citizen. I'm married to my spouse who's not a person from the United States. If you believe that we're married, approve this relationship so my spouse can immigrate." Fantastic. The problem, anybody can file that regardless as to where your spouse is, whether your spouse is in the United States or your spouse is in their foreign home country. You can always file that I-130. But the challenge you have is, how does a person get that green card? And when you're inside the United States, as people in our audience certainly know, that you get that green card by filing Form I-485, Adjustment of Status. The problem is, and what this program addresses, is the challenge of, hey, USCIS, the law says that we can't give away green cards for people who enter the United States without authorization. The Adjustment of Status rules say you must have been admitted or paroled to the United States, so admitted with a visa or paroled using another type of entry, what we're going to talk about, in order to get a green card. And the problem is, there are so many people, the government estimated, I think, about 500,000 people in the United States who have been here for a long time, married to United States citizens, and would be eligible for a green card, but for the fact that they entered illegally. This is where the Parole in Place program comes in. What it does, it's a late, after the moment, delayed admission, or rather parole to the United States, that would allow people to apply for a green card without leaving the country, which is something that they want to avoid.
So I'm gonna present what you said in a simpler way a little bit.
Please.
So a threshold requirement to get a green card in this country is to have entered the U.S. legally.
Correct.
It's a threshold requirement. If you have not entered the U.S. legally, you do not get a green card.
Yep.
And that's called admission.
Yep.
It's called admission. But there's another way in the law that exists and has existed for a long time.
Yep.
It's called paroled.
Yep.
What does paroled mean? It means allowed to be entered on paper.
Yeah. Outside of the laws of usual admission, like on a visa. Yeah.
You have not physically crossed. Let's assume you spiritually crossed. When you think of it as a spiritual crossing, they created. We lawyers like to create things to make it fit.
Legal fictions.
So we call it fiction. So there's something called parole, which means I'm going to sign this paper. If I sign this paper, you're good as if you're admitted.
Yep.
And that's what a parole is. So parole in place, the word in place refers to somebody who got that piece of paper that was signed by the government while here in the U.S. Because most of the time, to be paroled, you have to enter the U.S.
Yeah.
Physically, believe it or not.
Yeah. Appear at the border. Yeah.
Yeah. Appear at the border. So this one, you don't have to do that. You just mail it, and then you get a piece of paper back. It says, "Hey, you're paroled in place."
Parole while sitting on your couch at home. Yeah, exactly.
We've forgiven you for you not being admitted. So the parole in place is a forgiveness, if you will, a legal way to forgive the fact that person did not go in the U.S. enter the United States through legal means. So there's an application. It's a parole application that allows the person to be approved to be paroled in place. And if you're paroled in place, and the government says, "Yeah, you are paroled in place," then now you can file the normal application for a marriage app.
For anybody else who entered the United States. Yeah.
It's typically an I-130 petition and an I-485 petition.
Yeah.
So those are the two things you have to do after you're paroled in place. So the very first thing you do is you have to make a request for a parole in place. Brian, now we've gotten here, and you're getting distracted by somebody.
Yes. Yes. And but I'm no longer distracted, so all is good.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is that Joe messing with you?
No, it's nice folks cleaning our office, doing their job, and I'm the guy who forgot to close the door. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You should run the vacuum cleaner around you as you're working. That will be hilarious. Everybody will do that.
Yeah.
All right. So So, what are the requirements to be paroled in place per this new policy that has been published in the Federal Register hours, minutes ago, I think?
Yeah, sometime I think they finally got it out. Maybe it was late on Friday, maybe it was early this morning, but we were kept in suspense until the last minute. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
What
number
are the
one,
requirements?
yeah. First of all, I guess it's the most obvious one is you must be present in the United States without admission, like on a visa or parole, having been given that parole that we discussed previously.
So, this is
Um,
not for someone who came in on a visitor visa and overstayed their visa.
correct. That
Because,
problem.
because these people can get a green card through marriage, anyways.
Yeah. One
So,
thing with one thing
mhm.
reason why I'm so glad we're talking about this is because I've probably had at least 4 consultations where somebody says, "Is this program going to help me?" And my answer is, "Well, how did you enter the United States?" "Oh, I entered on a visitor visa or a working visa and overstayed." And my answer is, "No, it doesn't really help you. It helps those who entered, without authorization, because those folks would be eligible to apply for a green card straight away through a U.S. citizen spouse, for example." Yeah.
Because those who entered on and their visa expired, they can get
Yeah.
a green card anyways.
Yeah, that
US
happens
military.
all the time. I usually, I have a case we're working on right now. He's been in the United States, entered on a visitor visa 20 years ago, and
Precisely.
he got married to a United States citizen. Boom, green card
Yeah,
application, no
yeah,
problem. Yeah.
yeah, precisely.
So
Good. So that's the first requirement, which is the obvious one.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So
Second, Brian.
2, yes. You must have been continually present in the United States since at least June 17th, 2014, and through the date of filing your request. So this is a 10-year look back period from the date that I think it was the day before the president announced this on June 17th, 2024. Basically, you have to have been present in the United States for 10 years before that magic date, June 17th, 2024. That's that. Let's see.
No exception
Yeah.
on that.
No. Yeah.
Continuous physical presence.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is going to be quite challenging to approve continual physical presence. But
It
we'll go
depends.
through the proof discussion later,
Yeah.
and we'll have that conversation at the end.
Yeah. Fair enough. So you must have a legally valid marriage to a United States citizen on or before June 17th, 2024. So you have to actually been married to United States citizen as of that magic date. So, and that's something, again, it's before then. Running to the court to get married now doesn't fix that problem.
Through the date of filing your request. So interruption in the marriage will render this not helpful.
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, you have to be married to that you have to be married to that United States citizen to get your green card through to the end anyway. So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, let's see here. Next on the list is there must be no disqualifying criminal history, and you must otherwise be deemed not a threat to public safety, national security, or border security. So, we'll talk about a little bit more about this, but disqualifying criminal history, as I'm sure everybody in our audience can imagine, there are definitely crimes you can commit that make you ineligible to get a green card. And fundamentally, they don't want to waste their time on if they don't think they can issue you a green card ever, they're not going to care about paroling you if they don't think you have a path to really getting a green card, essentially. Yeah.
And
So,
then,
and
and
the
then the
last,
next one is you're willing to go through the paperwork, basically.
yeah, basically, yeah, we're gonna vet you. We're gonna ask you questions about your history, and we're gonna actually vet you, do background checks on you. So, pretty straightforward stuff. I guess a couple things I would note about the process, which is kind of interesting, is it's on Form I-131F, which is online only. It's available through the USCIS website, which is always a little bit fun to deal with an online USCIS filing. They don't make it exactly easy, but I guess it's accessible. At least it's accessible. I guess maybe there's probably people in our audience who find submitting paper forms to USCIS to be a bit daunting, and it can be, considering they can reject a form if you don't do the perfect filing. So that's something that you can really think about.
So the I-131 has to be done online.
Yeah.
through USCIS website,
Yeah.
and you have to submit the evidence. Now, compiling the evidence of 10-year physical presence, uh, the marriage obviously is easy, straightforward.
That's a piece of paper from your state government or state or local government
And
that issued.
then what kind of evidence you need, Brian, to show your physical presence since that magic date?
I mean, I can think of a couple ways to do it. Now, if you had an ICE encounter, perhaps early on, they'll often log when they first met you. So if you had an encounter with ICE where they arrested you or detained you, they would and had an interview with you. That's the sort of thing where they might log that. But more practically speaking, let's talk about, maybe it depends upon who you are. If you're a child at the time when school records showing that you were attending school in the United States, report cards, transcripts showing that little version of you was enrolled in school. That would apply, of course, to stepchildren who are here right now and are still in school, of course. Obviously, you can always go for affidavits from friends and family who could attest to your presence, which I don't think are the most favored sort of evidence for a scenario like this, by virtue of the fact that I think USCIS would be inclined to believe that a lot of people would, try to engage in fraud on that to get that benefit. Working records, tax records, leases. It's always it's always challenging, this scenario, because essentially the people who this is benefiting, they're undocumented, and thereby they are less inclined to have good records. But medical bills, it's the sort of thing where every person I'll kind of ask them about their life and say, well, what do you think, essentially?
So the last 5 years. So I break it mentally down to the first 5 years and the second 5 years, just to break it down logically for me. It's just
Sure.
there's no reason for it, but for me, I just break it up that way. Because what happened is in the most recent 5 years, probably the records are easily available. Bank records, statement, jobs. If you've been here for 10 years, the last 5 years, there's paper trail. I don't see a problem.
I buy that premise. Yes.
So the previous 5 years is where the challenge is when I came in and I met this guy who told me go. I came in, then I traveled to Boston. I met this guy who told me go to New York, meet my friend.
You're
And
living kind of underground if you enter the United States
yeah,
without authorization.
and you're dealing with cash. You're working for cash. And
you were living a low-profile lifestyle when you first entered the United States without authorization, and now they're asking, show us that you're present here, when you were trying to basically not tell anybody that you were present here for fear of being
well,
caught.
I would begin by making a statement of when I entered, what I did, lay it out, map it, and then trying to pick up some points, people that you trust, that would say they've met you, they know of you at that time, at this juncture. Some people are not the kind of people that maintain a relationship for a long time. Those people may struggle a little bit. Other people may have maintained, I met these 5 people or these people early on and I stayed in touch with them. They can write you affidavits and
Yeah.
statements about they've known you. So there's work to be done to prove the 10 years for some people, not for everybody. Like if
Yeah.
you're young and you went to school, it's easy.
Yeah, that's so easy. But I mean, I just think about, like, you can't go to an employer and confirm you're working in the United States, because odds are that employer doesn't want to admit that they were employing you when you are undocumented.
Especially if they paid you cash.
Yeah.
And that's another problem for them. So they're not interested in that, but maybe you've worked with other people.
Yeah, people who you worked with, for sure. I mean, it's funnily enough, I think, like, if you got a speeding ticket, 15 years ago, and they decide, they didn't pick you up, that's the sort of thing that, where that's a good civil record. Obviously you don't want to bring up, everybody would be hesitant to say, I don't want to go tell them I got speeding tickets. Those are really minor things, and that's a good
medical record will be helpful.
Yeah, medical records as well, but that's difficult because if you don't have it, if you're again living on sort of the on the outskirts of society, because you are not here with authorization, is the bottom line. That's such an important challenge for that, and the results.
Other people have it easy. For example, you have a child who is 11 years old.
Yeah.
That's it. You're done.
Oh, because
DNA test.
This is
They
very true.
prove the 10 years. So there are things that you can show, birth certificate of your child, that becomes
I
easy.
guess it requires creativity and really kind of thinking about your life for the last 10 years prior to June.
But it's doable. It's
Yeah,
something that's doable. And usually you need to have an attorney who has kind of a broad mindset that can help you kind of figure this out. And there's sometimes only one piece of paper that you need.
yeah.
You lost your passport, or you lost a document, you filed a police report or something.
I mean, yeah. I mean, how about this one? If you're maintaining your passport, 10 years passports tend to last, Sam. If you got a passport renewed and it was issued by the Colombian consulate in New York rather than in your home country, that'd be evidence that you
Oh,
were president in the
exactly.
United States. So
Okay.
all sorts of things like that are out there. It's really kind of a very personal sort of scenario, though, for sure. Yeah.
And we've had success because the parole in place was available for spouses of current and prior military
Yeah, military
personnel.
folks. Yeah.
And we've done this before Biden
Yeah.
introduced it to us. So we've done this successfully. We've had a parole in place approved in this office before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a good program, and it's glad to see they extended it. I remembered to look up how long that one took to process, but I guess
not too long, about 5 6 months, Brian. I remember.
yeah. I guess the bottom line though is, Sam, do we have any idea as to how long the processing times might be for a program like
Well,
this?
there is no in the parole in place. I don't think issues that slows down the normal advanced parole, which is to review immigration history to make sure that there is no inadmissibility problem.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
don't
point
think these exist. The
because
only thing is, do you have good evidence showing the one, two, three, four?
yeah,
And if you do, I think you'll get it quickly.
I'm just absolutely. I mean, I would. I'd be very curious about the massive influx of applications they're going to get because I expect there to be a lot of them. I guess not everybody is going to apply immediately, but maybe that's why we're out here just sort of talking about it because everybody should apply. Because Sam, maybe let's talk. We talked about the program in general. I mean, what are the things that make you paranoid about this program? And our colleague Attorney Joe Morhart expressed a good concern.
I
And this
don't think
is,
there's a major concern, Brian, in general.
yeah,
I
well,
mean, in my opinion, when DACA was introduced,
yeah,
everybody said, "Yeah, I'm going to come out of the box. I'm going to give the government my name," and all of a sudden they know about me. I've been in hiding forever. DACA now has become the law. But when DACA first came in, it
well,
was very scary for people to come out.
it's well for those people they can still extend the program, but it's still it's kind of a half alive program at this point. But you're
Well,
right.
people are going to be scared just like DACA because these kids were, hidden, undocumented. These kids were between us.
Oh yeah, well
I
everywhere.
have, I have, they have no accent. They look American. They act American. They're practically Americans, and nobody knew about them. And then they have to come out and turn
Yeah,
themselves and look. So
I guess
everybody's saying now, okay, if I do a parole in place, and next administration can flip over on me, you can't live your life that way. I mean, the possibility is there.
yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, again, the idea. I mean, deportation in general, it's done by priority. They prioritize criminals. That's sort of thing. And again, the concept of deporting everybody is a pipe dream. The As we were discussing before we talked here, they don't have the government attorneys, let alone the immigration judges, to put everybody through deportation proceedings to actually achieve that goal. So, and obviously the DACA folks are still here. Their names have been in the database. An administration who was much harder on immigration that went by, and they didn't mine those records and say, hey, let's deport everybody. They had different priorities. They were building up the border defenses, that sort of thing, harder on immigration. But the bottom line is they chose not to go after those people who put their faith in the government. And so I sort of, I mean, it's a natural paranoia to have, Sam, but my paranoia is maybe on the other side because this program has just been announced and we do have a presidential election coming up, and these programs don't necessarily last forever. If there's a change in administration, an unfavorable one, I wouldn't expect a policy like this to last too long into the next administration, sort of like how DACA basically got shut down by the courts. I would expect
Whether
realistic.
or not somebody jumps into it is going to be somebody that's going to have to decide
Sure.
for themselves. That's, obviously it's a big one. But some people have been living here for decades
Yeah.
without paper, and this is your chance to.
Yeah.
I
I'm.
mean, the idea of deporting spouses of U.S. citizens is not something that is appealing to any president.
Yeah.
Deporting criminals is one thing, but deporting spouses and mothers of U.S. citizens is not something that I think any president has the appetite to do. So I'm not worried about it, but that's my personal
No,
opinion.
I would agree with you because Sam, this is the immigration, and if you want to be, if you're not into immigration, you could really kind of call this amnesty for people who have entered the United States illegally, and really kind of complain and bellyache about this. But one thing is, I haven't really seen that much. I mean, I live in a very immigration centric bubble because I'm an immigration attorney, but I haven't seen. Maybe you have. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right news places. Much national immigration, national news and politics about this program, complaining about it. I would think that there would be a lot of people, talking heads out there saying, no, 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 we don't want this. Absolute
How
cricket.
dare them? Nobody will be able to do that. It's spouses of U.S. citizens
Spouses of U.S.
who
citizens.
have a vote. They can vote, and
Yeah.
if the Republicans are going to go against it, or anybody else can
Anybody
go,
else is,
it could be a big problem.
yeah, it's just
And
something very, very fascinating. Immigration is such a hot button issue. And again, this is a
so
huge,
500,000 U.S. Undocumented U.S. citizens equal to 500,000 U.S.
U.S.
citizens
citizen votes. Yeah.
who are voting.
Yeah.
And for
Not just them,
anybody
Sam. The family mom and dad of that U.S. citizen doesn't want to see their daughter-in-law or husband or son-in-law
times
deported.
three, yeah,
Yeah,
times two, times three,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a big deal. I don't think anybody is going to have and I think something that's long overdue. I mean, it's ridiculous. I
Well,
mean, okay, it's yeah,
well, I mean, realistically, a lot of these people have a path to a green card anyway. It's just the very painful version of it, where, hey, you're going to have to leave the country and go apply for a green card at the consulate. Which, as an aside, this program is probably going to relieve a lot of pressure at the consulates, which is something we deal with a lot in this office as well, because we have been more and more in the last couple of years suing the government to get them to move cases at the consulates. Those guys are absolutely swamped. The idea of relieving that pressure, 500,000
it'll be highly
cases
welcome.
off the consulate is huge. That's a couple years worth of. I mean, I think they average right now about the consulate about 50,000 green cards a month from around the world. That's 50,000 times. You get the point. It's a lot of cases off their plate and onto the plate of USCIS.
Yep. So
Interesting
that's it.
stuff.
Yep, that's it. Biden parole in place and legalization program.
Yeah.
Shifting gears, Brian.
Yes.
Shifting gears.
Let's
Yeah.
talk. Let's talk. Well, let's sort of give our usual preface by this. This is the point of the presentation where we will take questions from our audience. Keep in mind that when we take these questions, we are only getting a little snippet about your life and your immigration story and the key data that helps us make really good, smart decisions. So I guess what I'm saying is, please remember, you need to find an immigration attorney of your choosing to really help on your immigration issues. Do not act upon what Sam and I are talking about here during this session, because you owe it to yourself to take your immigration status seriously and really talk to a professional about it personally, about the exact details of your case before making any final decision.
Yes.
Yes.
So one of the things also you should remember is that you always have a choice of an immigration attorney to choose to help you with your case. We only advise you here. We think we're good lawyers, but there's many other good lawyers out there, and you need to pick one that's you're comfortable with to help you with your case.
Yeah.
Without further delay, let's take the first one, Brian.
Yes, from Tech Dreamer, and based upon that name, I believe the Tech Dreamer is an employment-based green card applicant, and I thank Tech Dreamer for staying around as we had our fun little jaunt into a family immigration sort of scenario for today. So, hi Sam and Brian, my priority date is not current, and I-45 status shows case remains pending, but my I-45J recently approved. What does that mean, and when usually they approve I-485J? So,
Good
um,
question.
yeah, and Tech Dreamer, your question. Well, the fact that you're asking a question at all suggests confusion, and I think you're right to be a little bit confused as to why are they approving this I-485J, because I've seen sort of different results all over the place. Basically, I've seen literally USCIS approve like 3 I-485Js right at the same time as they approve somebody's green card, and I've seen the scenario you're describing: a guy or gal without a current priority date getting an approval notice for I-485J. So if I'm a guessing guy, basically an approved I-485J should mean to me is that they approve that you are, assuming it was a portability request that you made, same or similar occupation. They looked at this and said, okay, I guess this I-485J is good. I guess Tech Dreamer is now moved on to another job in a same or similar occupation, meaning hopefully that whenever his or her priority date comes up, that we'll know that they have a good job available to them. Bottom line, it's hard to see what else it would mean. The bottom line is,
Here's a simpler approach
Sure.
to this. They can do whatever they can do, and they can put out whatever message they can. If the visa is not available, there's really your case is not moving.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the I-45J is nice.
Yeah.
That means they've looked at it and they are in concurrence with what you put in there. There are no concerns. You continue the green card process awaiting your priority date.
Yeah.
And that's all what it is. They are not consistent in their messages. But there's consistent in one thing, letting you know that you don't have a green card yet.
Yeah.
And you will have it when you have it.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really mean anything until a green card's in your hand. It means your case remains pending, and that's kind of it. Yeah.
And there are no bad news. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. So from Wesley, green card EAD approved last October for 5 years, but AP is pending for more than 1 year. Shall I go ahead and reapply? Well. What do you think, Sam?
Yes, it's for free.
That's true. As long as I presume he's he would have to be, because we filed it back in October. I presume that he's in a category where it's still free. Fine.
If it's for free, yes.
But I don't expect a different result, Sam. I think there's a reasonable chance that they will. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I agree with you. But I think there's a reasonable chance that they would deny the second case for a duplicate request, because sometimes they do things like that. And but I don't think it hurts.
In any case, they must issue an RFE before they deny.
I agree with that in principle.
So
but
you're saying there's a chance by filing a second one, you'll create confusion, and
I'm not saying
you're
that.
You're not in love with the idea of applying a second time.
I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and over again, expecting different results. And now, granted, Wesley doesn't seem it multiple times, but I don't think that's going to get you a faster advanced parole. US, there's no cheat code that gets you there. I think the processing times for APs are. Well, Sam, I guess I'm gonna have to offer an alternative if I'm going to poo-poo the idea of reapplying. Be the squeaky wheel. USCIS ombudsman, contact your congressperson, make them feel as miserable as you do about not having an EAD in your hand. Squeaky wheels sometimes do get the grease, as they should.
Okay. There's no perfect answer to this, but I agree with you. Maybe it's a little bit more effective than applying a second time.
Well, neither option is a guarantee, but it's. I guess the bottom line is, Wesley, I fully advocate doing whatever you can, and things they're on that list are things that are fall the category. Sure, I don't think they can really negatively impact you, and thereby they're worth doing. So. Sam, do you want to take the next one?
Sure, put it there. RK, how long do you see EAD advanced parole and 485 processing timeline will take. In the regulation of the PIP program, it was stated that other applications processing time will be impacted. Parole in place,
Yeah.
PIP. So, I mean, clearly it will be impacted. You got 500,000 applications coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
But in terms of foreseeing or projecting what's the delay on the approvals, I don't think the EAD is going to be delayed so much, but it's very possible that the advanced parole will take a hit, and the I-45 processing time might take a hit as well.
Sam, what do you think of Mandamus actions on advanced paroles? We've been forced to file a lot of Mandamus actions on a lot of things lately because the government is just getting slow. I guess I think about like the cost and the complexity of a Mandamus action versus the need for an advanced parole. What do you think about that?
I think if you group it with a bunch of other people and file one case as a group case,
Yeah,
you know,
you can be a lot more effective on that instead of
yeah,
paying one federal court filing fee rather than 20 different
yes,
for 20 people.
yes.
Yeah,
I mean, we will make it a little bit less expensive for our clients when they do those kind of cases because we understand, money doesn't grow on trees, but there's still effort and time
yeah,
in processing these cases.
yeah. Again, I think it's an interesting. I would love to see how the government reacts to that sort of scenario because I think they'd say, well, if they really had a need to travel, they could go and get an emergency one. And well,
Well,
there you
but you
go.
have a scenario that's between an emergency and an emergency. My brother's wedding.
Yeah,
Why people are being deprived of basic human
dignity. Yeah,
living needs.
yeah,
Being my mom is getting older. I haven't seen her in a year and a half.
yeah,
She just came out of a surgery. She's in great health, but I'd like to go and say hello and bring her some flowers.
yeah,
So I think you can make a good argument for those cases.
yeah, yeah. So another one is from RK here. Do you think that DOS released a similar announcement that EB2 GC cap has been met, similar to one that was announced for EB3 other workers, EB3 other workers, and EB5? So I think what RK is referring to is on the visa bulletin being, marking it as potentially marking it as unavailable, right?
I would not be surprised, Brian, if that happens. As a matter of fact, if that happens, it's kind of because it's temporary, because as of October 1st, they'll release new numbers.
Yeah,
But if that happens, that means the government is using all the numbers.
yeah,
So because we're so close to the end of the year,
yeah,
we're 6 weeks away.
yeah.
And therefore, that doesn't bother me. As a matter of fact, it's a welcome to say, we complied with the law, we used up all the numbers. But that's
Yeah,
not
I like that.
all
Yeah,
over again. So yeah, I encourage it. They should tell us that they've used up all the numbers. They haven't wasted any. So
yeah,
that would be a good thing.
yeah. I like that angle on it. Yeah, I don't consider that a bad announcement. I'm on that we had this conversation last week where we talked about the politics of the visa bulletin, and again, they're talking about we're going to retrogress this. I mean, somebody in the comments said Charles Oppenheim explained you retrogress it so people aren't shocked that you're not applying, that we're not processing green cards. But if you're not processing green cards, if you have a good legal reason, I think people are understanding of that fact.
This administration hasn't. I mean, with the parole in place, affecting positively 500,000 spouses of U.S. citizens, I think an administrative action removing the numerical connection between family members and the 140,000 green card would have been equally as positive to do on this side of the equation, on the employment based.
And I can't help but think it would go under the radar mostly because
There are no U.S. citizen spouses that are voting, and that's the
yeah,
problem.
but yeah, so okay, that might give somebody to rail more reason to rail against it. But I imagine some guy on CNN going, and can you believe this? They decoupled the counting of employment-based. You'd put your entire audience to sleep just trying to explain the concept. I
Oh
think.
no, I think they say the administration is letting more immigrants come into the United States. I mean, they'll have ways to to spin it.
And if I'm the other talking head, I'm going to say legally. They're there. These are legal immigrants. These are skilled people.
But there are no 500,000 votes, Brian.
Yeah,
And therefore, the incentive.
Sam,
to
how
do
come
it
you didn't
is
tell
not
me
there.
on day one as an immigration lawyer? This whole field is so ripe with politics. You should have told me, Sam. You should have told me. I probably should have figured it out from day one. I probably knew from day one. I think I'm just kidding.
But yeah, it is ridiculously political, unfortunately. Yeah.
So a question from Empire.
Do you see the continued layoff impacting the request for increase in H1B cap? Companies are laying off workers so heavily to invest in AI, making it harder for legislation to increase the H1B cap. Listen, I do not foresee an increase in H1B cap numbers in a long time.
I would agree.
This has been a struggle for both administrations for decades. And why do you think? I mean, we've passed so many interpretations of the H1B laws administratively to work around that time and time again. And I'll mention two or three that I remember. We've taken off all universities, okay, from the H1B counting. So universities can file for unlimited H1Bs right now.
Yep.
That wasn't the case 20 years ago.
Yep.
20 years ago, universities were part of the 85,000, 65,000 back then.
Yeah.
Only when in the year 1999, when the government panicked about Y2K, we went up to 100, I think 190.
I think 130, 135, something like that, maybe.
Maybe no. It's
still on the books. Yeah, I remember. I read it before.
Yeah, I think 140, 190, and then stepping down or something, some crazy number. Then they decoupled the universities. Then they did the beyond 6 years.
Yep.
H1B. That's another way to increase it through back doors.
Yeah.
So now, instead of increasing the number of H1Bs, we've increased the number of years each H1B can hold. Mm-hmm. That's an increase in the H1B cap numbers. Then we decoupled the H4 from the H1B. We said before, you can only be on H1B plus H4 combined for 6 years. Mm-hmm. And then we said, no. You can be on H4 for as long as your spouse, and you can be on H1B for 6 years. So if there's two married couple, one can be on 6 years, and the other one be on
swap places essentially.
Swap that doubles the number, and then with beyond 6 years, that makes it unlimited. So we've done so much, but Congress does not have the to deviate from the 85,000 number.
Yeah. Because
20,000 was added on recently.
The masters.
Masters, yes. So we're increasing the numbers. We're just not increasing the number.
Yeah, and if I'm thinking about politics, I would say whatever that new number, that hypothetical new number that Empire might have had in mind is, I can just imagine the talking heads see on TV. They're admitting 100,000
cheap labor,
take your jobs every year, and they would rail upon it forever. Essentially, keep that number out of the news. I imagine a lot of people would find the 85,000 number to be distasteful, and thereby, I don't think you want to bring that number up anymore.
And the other thing is, let's face it, with the layoffs, and Moya, that son moved into my room.
You got a different solar event occurring outside your window there. So
yes. So with the problem with H1Bs now getting laid off, that is a serious issue that we're facing for H1Bs. I don't see an appetite that number will ever increase.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you don't increase the green cards, why are you going to create bigger bottleneck for the green cards? I mean, we're already in a bad situation.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
you know,
I appreciate the question though, Sam, because I don't think I can't. I mean,
no, it's a great question.
yeah, I mean, because I guess I read it. I read it in the news. The Facebooks, the big companies of the world, they want more, and they've been doing some lobbying on that front. But it's never one where this really been asked in this venue. So
But they're laying off people. They want more, but they're laying them off,
yeah, yeah,
which is fine. I understand business is business, but yeah, right now with AI investment and other circumstances and conditions, yes. I mean, I was at a great big wedding the other day. A good friend of ours, daughter was getting married, and I had you know how it is in some of those ethnic weddings, uh, a lot of people, and I got to talk to so many of business owners, company owners, um, and here's the thing I hear from them always: Sam, business is bad.
yeah,
Business is bad. IT is stressed. Business is down. Some attributing it to high interest rate. Some people don't know why. Yeah, it's difficult time for IT.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, follow the news. There's a really cool website. Well, a really cool is it's perhaps a little bit depressing, but there's a website out there that tracks tech layoffs, which is, I guess, interesting to see how kind of bad
Yeah.
it is. I'm going to probably Google it when I'm done here because I just want to remember it. So moving on to MK. So hi, my H1 applied online and dependent H4. Well, here maybe this is a sort of repeat here. Hi, my H1 applied online and H4 applied in mail. Both went to different service centers. Will H4 get approved along with the H1? My frank answer is it seems less likely. You never know, but it seems less likely. USCIS is not really good at talking amongst itself, in my humble estimation.
There's about 500 USCISs out there, and none of them talk to each other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They remove files around. I guess they can sometimes look up information, but I don't think that the agency, not by malice, but has the collective skill to basically say, hey, let's get MK's H1B and MK spouse's H1B on the same railroad track. It's just something they're just not good at, I don't think. Yeah. So moving on to this question from 1308 Nani. So
USCIS recently posted that they have used all of the EB3 visas for current year. I'm from India, and my date is still current for September visa bulletin. Can I still expect my green card this year before October 1st? Well, that's number one. If you're current, I know you're on pins and needles right now because you don't want the darn thing to retrogress.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am from India and my date is still current. So the answer is you should. Now, the will you, in fact, is going to depend on how long the adjustment of status that you have filed has been pending. And what's really that priority date? Is it just on the edge of being current, or is it current with some cushion? And whether or not you've been passed over in the past by USCIS approving cases after you, which will make you eligible possibly for pursuing legal action if we don't move fast enough. So, Brian, do you have any better answer?
Not a better one that makes people happier, Sam, but it's a less optimistic one. So I guess the Department of State has not yet updated the visa bulletin because they said it's on our menu to mark you as unavailable to let people know that we're out of visas for the year. They haven't done that yet, but I'm going to trust that USCIS, the other user of visas, has some knowledge there. And basically, if they have used all EB3 visas, so as they say, and you have not been seen your case get approved, I would say, unless they have an unlikely event that they have a sort of one pre-allocated for you, I don't consider it likely that you're going to see that green card before the end of this fiscal year, September 30th. I mean, Sam, I have asked about this, and you said you've seen it done in person during USCIS interviews. They say, when I decide I'm going to approve your case, I'm going to go into the Department of State system to see, if there's visas left, right? And
Absolutely.
you had told me that once. You've seen them and you've had that conversation. And sometime in the last couple of years, I had a very frank USCIS officer who said, yeah, basically, yeah, I have access to a couple of virtualized systems on my computer here, and I can see whether or not a visa is available, and I have to make that decision when I make that decision, or I have to see when I make my decision. And that's that. So I suspect that USCIS information is pretty on the nose, and but I don't expect to hear as of tomorrow many people saying green card approvals in that category.
But some people will get green cards, and hopefully our friend 130, 1308 Nani is one of them, and that would be wonderful.
I don't think it's impossible, but I'm gonna say don't hold your breath on that one. I'm gonna take USCIS at face value, and I don't mean to be a gray cloud, but it is what it is. So gonna keep on going on here with Empire, who usually has everybody's questions are interesting, but Empire likes to ask us open-ended ones, and I'm a guy who likes to talk Sam. So, do you see more spillover than last year? Based upon the current rates of issuances of the preference category visa, is it still slow because immediate relatives get first preference? Will this new PIP help? Okay. So let's maybe I sort of start this one.
Well, here's my answer, and then you can explain. I'll give you the short answer, Brian.
Please give me a short answer, because I don't think the people can endure a Brian answer right now.
No. But go ahead.
Okay. So your answer very simply. I'm going to assume the first no, the same answer. The first no more spillovers. We looked at the data last week, and it seemed that USCIS, I think you calculated like 3% or 13%, something like that.
Slightly better than last year.
Yeah, doing better than last year. Last year, there's a rollover of 20,000 from family preferences to employment, and don't expect more this year. Seems to be what that data is saying. I didn't do a really detailed deep dive, but basically the consulates seem more productive during this fiscal year than they did during the prior year.
As to be expected.
Yeah. So based upon the current rate of issuances of preference category visas, it's still slow because immediate relatives get first preference. Will this new PIP help? And I don't think there should be. I'm going to sort of think aloud about this. I don't think there should be an interaction between the PIP and visa flow over, because PIPs, that's to benefit people who are spouses of U.S. citizens. Spouses of U.S. citizens.
U.S.
Yeah, who are the bottom line, they pull from an infinite pool of visas, right? They pull from there's always all these people are quote unquote immediate relatives, as Empire writes, of U.S. citizens. There is always a visa available for those folks, I guess, and there's always a set aside for family preference visas as well. But the bottom line, I haven't looked at the data for this for a while. It's possible if the demand, as Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the demand for immediate relatives is very low, it's possible for there to be more visas available for family preferences, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah, but I don't think ever have I probably would have heard about it, that the demand for immediate relatives has been so low as to increase the family preference availability, meaning I don't see how the PIP really impacts this.
Well, not only that, but it has come at the very end of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So for anything to trickle down, you need to look at the next fiscal year, what the impact next fiscal year will be, but not this year. This year, the party's over. We're 6 weeks away from the end.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be a very simple answer for once. I mean, PIP people are getting immediate relative visas. They're not taking, technically speaking, they're taking all immediate relatives, take away from potential family preference availability, but that's always the case. Don't expect the family preference to be lower because immediate relatives are getting theirs. They're always lower because immediate relatives are getting theirs. They're just going to be even more immediate relatives getting to drink from their infinite cup, essentially, of immediate relative visas there. Yep. So, well, actually, we're looking at this last comment here from Empire. I think it sort of got split in half, and it totally changes. I think maybe Empire knows that the PIP won't help make more family preference available, but let's see what he says. I think what was meant to be asked was, will this new PIP help embassies by possible removing I-601A cases? Yes. Well,
But
that's
that does not help employment immigration. That
correct.
helps process more family immigration
Yeah, yeah.
in lieu of processing 601As, which would make the spillover less.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, I guess my answer is simple. Um, yeah, the PIP, the parole in place, will drive cases away from the consulates into the United States. Oh, Sam, should we be talking? What is this going to do to adjustment of status processing times? Sam, I mean,
Well, yeah, no,
we
of
were
course.
talking
I
about.
mean, that was the first or second question we had today.
It's
Impact.
gotta drive it up. It's absolutely
Well,
gotta.
right now you have 5 or 6 months of parole in place to be filed and approved.
Yeah,
Then the second wave, which
is
is the I-130 and the I-485.
yeah, yeah,
So in the first 5 to 6 months, I don't see an impact. Even the following 5 months, maybe not, because all these will be coming in. They're looking at 3-year approval. Remember, they're approving the advanced
yeah,
parole or the parole in place for 3 years because they're looking
yeah,
at 3-year timeline to approve them.
yeah, yeah. That's what.
Therefore, so I see what I'm seeing is that they're going to take these cases and they're going to put them in warehouses and get people EADs and advanced parole, which will impact our EADs and advanced parole, probably the advanced parole more so. And then 2 years from now, unless they have the manpower, because they're thinking they're going to have to ramp up employment to handle these cases.
Yeah.
So I see potential impact a year or two from now. I don't see an impact for the immediate 12 months, coming 12 months.
Yeah, I guess maybe this is not what Empire is getting at, but I guess it does. It in theory should take down the processing time of I-601A waivers, which I believe are the provisional ones for when you're going to the consulate, because there's gonna be less people going to the consulate. So that might be an interesting impact
It's a
there.
domino. It's a
Yeah,
domino, right? You got to
yeah,
follow that domino impact or effect. But embassies doesn't mean that they have freed one employee for 601. They're gonna do more 601. They're gonna maybe redivert that person somewhere else. I mean, it's not that straightforward of a relationship necessarily.
yeah. So Sam, we're wrapping up here, but all these questions about there's a sort of threads here. Basically, USCIS is taking a really long time on my case, and also there's a lot of is my case going to be taking longer as USCIS takes on other sorts of cases. And I just happened to Google the number of USCIS has 20,000 employees and contractors around the world. Does USCIS have anywhere near enough employees, Sam?
Well, I mean, that's a lot of people.
I mean, they're included. I mean, this is right from the policy handbook. It says, nearly 20,000 employees from the USCIS handbook, and that's 200 offices across the world. I thought it'd be more than that, based upon just the number of cities that have one. But if you're including contractors in that, they have tons of contractors out there, which I suspect are, in the mailroom or doing, biometrics for people at service centers. I don't know. It doesn't really seem that many, considering how big the demand is the bottom line for immigration in the United States. They have a massive problem. I guess they don't want to overhire, but gee golly, I think there's a lot of people out there who wouldn't mind. Wouldn't mind their taxes going up a little bit to now then again, USCIS is a self-funded agency, but wouldn't mind more USCIS employees to actually efficiently to promptly do their work, I guess is the bottom line.
Let's take the last one, Brian.
Yes. Well, this is from Empire, who's sort of, just given us good chat points to talk here. So I think the thinking is the embassy would have possible 500K less applications, and that is with I-601A waiver to process, ensuring they can do other applications. Yeah.
Which is basically family applications.
Oh, okay. I see it. I see now. Okay, I see. I understand it. And maybe you already understood it, Sam. But I'm just understanding it now. So Empire is saying if they're taking less immediate relatives, those are more of those 500,000. Those are getting processed in the United States. They will have more time to do. You definitely understood it earlier, Sam. I'm just catching up. They will have more time to work on family preference cases, and those family preference cases will go faster. get issued quicker, and thereby less wasted family preference visas, and thereby less spillover for the benefit of employment folks. Okay, I
next
caught up.
next year, but next year, but
Yeah, because there's little impact that this isn't going to impact anybody until now.
but next year, anyways. I think without that, we may not have any overflow.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my closing
But,
thought on the
yeah.
PIP, Sam, is I'm part of a bunch of immigration attorneys groups. I don't like the magic arbitrary date of June 17th, 2024, because there are people who probably could have gotten married. I know they don't want to encourage people to run to the wedding chapel, as it were, but there are people who are sort of down and out. What does it matter? Who have
You
gotten.
gotta draw the line, Brian. The
I
line must be
suppose so.
drawn, and the line must be drawn very brightly, because if you don't draw the line brightly, you're gonna have a mess.
Yeah, yeah. I guess so. All right.
One more, since I've said that, I will honor that.
Okay. All right. All right. So from Kim, is wet reckless driving a disqualification? So I imagine, well, Sam, you start talking because I am perhaps not having the best words to get this one ball rolling.
Okay, I'm sorry, I do not know. I mean, reckless driving, yes, but wet reckless driving?
Okay, okay, I have an angle for this. So here's what my bet is. I'm an Ohio licensed attorney. I do practice law in Ohio, but Ohio surely has a reckless driving statute. I don't think they have one for reckless driving. So, and I guess I'm going to talk for a minute about how they judge crimes when it comes to immigration. Basically, they judge you against the law, not the specific facts of the case. They judge you based upon what you were convicted of, not well, he was convicted of reckless driving, but it was wet outside, and his wife shouted at him before he left home. That's the general sort of way you have to look at this. So I don't think there's
and I just googled it quickly.
Yeah.
So
you're gonna tell me there's a reckless driving law, Sam?
wet reckless refers to a plea bargain to lesser than DUI with acknowledgement of that there was some alcohol involved, but not conviction.
Oh dear,
No
I was way off
drugs
the
involved.
mark.
Yeah.
It's
So what reckless driving is qualification. So number one, there disqualification to what is the question? Disqualification for non-immigrant visa, disqualification for visa stamp, disqualification for a green card. So there's all kind of things that's going on here with this question.
Yeah.
And obviously we've taken this question beyond the 7 o'clock, but we're going to give it a couple minutes.
Yeah.
In my opinion, a reckless driving, if it refers to any alcohol, is going to be a problem for stamping, for visa stamping, unless you go through some form of rehabilitation that's well documented, Brian.
Why will you have a problem at a visa stamping scenario, Sam?
Because number one, it is in the Foreign Affairs Manual that the biggest concern for stamping is the safety of the American public from a foreign person who is getting wet and driving, the driving with alcohol. So that is specifically mentioned in the Foreign Affairs Manual as a concern. The consulate does not have to follow the law strictly. They have wide latitude in interpreting this guy was drunk, and what he got is equivalent to a DUI regardless.
Yeah.
So they are going to press that person for rehabilitation.
Yeah.
So I think a concern, a big concern.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's on this stamping. Yeah. On the H1B visa, probably the least concern is the H1B visa at USCIS, because there's no conviction, but there could be conviction based on how these documents are drafted. So not every plea bargain is not a conviction under immigration law. It's a long topic. We can talk about it some other time.
Yeah.
And with regard to the green card, same as the H1B, it all depends on how it's drafted.
How the law, particular law in which you
plea bargain reads, it all depends on a lot of details.
Part of the work we do in that, hypothetically we would do in that scenario, it's basically, part of a green card application would be, of course, you have to admit these things, because public service announcement, they ask you I'm not going to quote the exact language on I-485, but they ask you whether we've ever been arrested, cited, or convicted of a crime. So, citations are even little things. So you're going to have to disclose that in a green card application. And part of doing that is if there's, obviously we don't give big explanations for things like traffic tickets and that sort of thing. But if there's any sort of interesting criminal thing, part of the work that we do as attorneys is we basically review your criminal records, review the law, and we'll review the state law and review the immigration law, and basically explain to the government, hey, we're fully acknowledging that this thing happened. Here's the records. It's been disclosed in the form. Here's copies of the documents. Here's why it is or isn't, an immigration issue. And it really depends upon what your criminal records read like is the bottom line, the law that you pled to.
Thanks, Tim, for the big question at the very end. Thank you for listening to us today on Monday at 6 o'clock every Monday. We will come out next week and talk about a topic of your interest or a big topic that is of a concern in the immigrant community. From Shihab Burke, you guys